Welcome to the Astrology Star Sisters. Today's topic is the Capricorn Decans using astrology and tarot. And my star sister, colleague, and friend, Joy Vernon, is here with me today to talk about the Capricorn Decans. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, great. So let's get started. So to get a hold of Joy, her website is joyvernon.com. And my website is alightpath.com. And we always enjoy hearing from you. And here's a picture for the Capricorn Decans that I took off my porch the other night. I thought it was pretty.
It's so beautiful.
Thank you. And then Capricorn is a cardinal sign. It's initiates, create, starts each season, the equinoxes and the solstices. Its ruling planet is Saturn. It's Earth. It's solid, stable, secure, committed, and building trust. And some of the mantras are I utilize, I function in the world, and I achieve. Would you like to say the keywords?
Sure. Yeah, we've got structure, boundaries, building. It's practical, hardworking. Nose to the grindstone is one that I often use for Capricorn. Ambitious, frugal, patient, responsible, and resourceful. And the caution, of course, would be too serious. It can be bossy, pessimistic sometimes, or impatient. I don't know. Is that right? Impatient? I'm not
Yes.
sure. Is it impatient? You're a Capricorn, right?
Well, but this is like in their negative way, or maybe that they lose their patience and become impatient. So, but most of the time, Capricorns are fairly patient, but not always. And being too bossy, it's like, um, it's good to have a boss because they make really good bosses, but being too bossy is, maybe they're frustrated and impatient, and so they become kind of like nagging.
That makes sense. I think that's good actually because Capricorn is so earthy and we give it so many keywords that are so like heavy and gravitas and serious and all of that, but we forget it's a cardinal sign, and that cardinal sign always has that push, and Capricorn doesn't have the push that an Aries does. But at the same time it does have a kind of like like those football players that you see in the movies, because I don't watch football. And there's those big heavy things and they have to like push up against it and move it. And that's not like a Aries sprinter or something, but it definitely has a lot of force behind it. And so now that you say, I'm thinking of my Capricorn friends and I'm like, I don't think of them as impatient, but that's because I just know really cool people. And so I'm like, yeah, I guess I can see that, because once they really have that, know that direction and have built up the force to move forward, then there's nothing that'll stop them. Just like that big football player coming at you, it's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to stop this. So I can see that.
Well, and I like how you use the Aries versus the Capricorn, because the Aries is like a sprinter. It's like that was perfect because they're just, let's charge into it, where Capricorn's going to be like, oh, wait a minute, let's investigate this. And Capricorn sometimes gets a bad rap about that they want to climb the ladder and they leave everybody behind, but I don't find that to be so true, because they're a group of people. If they're good at delegating and working with people, they're great bosses. It's like they take the whole crew with them to move forward with whatever project that might be. So
Yeah, and I like that, and I've had some good Capricorn bosses, some bad Capricorn bosses, and good Aries bosses and bad Aries bosses. And they are definitely different.
well, that's why
Yeah.
I like to use the keywords and then the caution, because it's like it's not its best form can be the caution of that those are possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're talking about the decans again today, and The 30 degrees of each sign is divided into 3 decans with basically 10 degrees in each one. And they're originated in Egypt and aligned with fixed stars. Is there anything else that you'd like to say about this?
No, I think that that's good, and we cover that every time. So, and the info's there on the slide.
So we're going to start with the major arcana card, the Devil, Capricorn, and Joy has chosen a lovely deck called the Yuletide Tarot by Christopher Hughes. So what would you like to tell us about this card?
Well, first of all, I just this deck just came out last year. It's always nice to have those seasonal decks. They're just really fun and give you something kind of extra to play with. And this pulls a fair amount from like folklore and things like that. So we get Krampus here for our Santa Claus, for our devil, the shadow side of Santa Claus for our devil. And I one of the things I kind of find really interesting about the composition of this card is that basket there reminds me of a chimney, and so I still get that Santa Claus by the chimney effect. But it's not, it's different, and it brings out kind of, just like we were talking about with the keywords and the cautions, it brings out the contrast between our generous Santa Claus and our punishing Krampus character. And he seems to be spanking that kid, and the kid, I think the kid is even has chains on his hand or something, but the girl got rewarded. She's got a bowl of apples. So, and I think that I guess that to me, in terms of associating it with Capricorn, I think that the devil, I want to talk about this card, but I also want to talk about the card in general. I think the devil card in general can be very focused on the material. And maybe in terms of Krampus, we're seeing focused on like reward and punishment, kind of more of a binary. You either did well or you did poorly. You either get the reward or you get the punishment. Or with the regular devil card, it's more focused on that physical, mundane, worldly needs, being bound to the mundane or being bound to all of those keywords we just looked at, like security and stability, money, the need to use things to achieve, which are some of the mantras for that. And so devil works really nicely as Capricorn. It's got a certain amount of power and control to it as well, which I think suits Capricorn pretty well. So those are some of the things about the card that I think relate really nicely to Capricorn.
Well, and I like to look at the word devil, and it is associated with Capricorn, and it's like we can become a workaholic as a Capricorn. So, taking care of the daily details is good, but then spelled backwards, it's lived. So I think it's really important to balance our work, play, social life with that work or disciplined part of us. So I always think of that as like, remember to live and enjoy
Yeah,
life.
I think that's true. And I think the one thing that's true about Capricorns, and this probably definitely could show up as a meaning for the devil card too, is that they're really hard on themselves, and they're really they are disciplined people, but often because they discipline themselves and kind of have really high expectations for themselves, and so this card shows just a Christmas folklore scene, but the truth of the matter is that Capricorns can be very self-flagellating, self-punishing, as they strive to achieve.
Right, and it's good to be dedicated, but to balance. And I liked how you said the basket reminded you of a chimney, which it did. But when I first looked at it, I thought, well, is that a basket from a air balloon? And then and then I noticed like the chains that are around the child in the basket that they're broken, so it's like breaking free from um, being so disciplined and all the that you dedicate yourself to. Maybe, it's
Yeah.
time to break free from being, working 8 hours a week, maybe only work 65 or something.
I don't know. I'm just having a negative reaction to the Capricorn energy, but my mind, when you pointed out that the chains were broken, I'm like, yeah, but he's still being spanked, so it's out of the frying pan into the fire. He like freed himself from one thing only to be captured by this mean beast that's going to spank him.
Okay, so we're going to go to Capricorn Decan number 1 and go ahead and talk about that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our Two of Pentacles, and in this deck, the Pentacle suit is gifts, which makes sense because they're physical objects, that they are valuable and things like that. So our title from the Golden Dawn is a Lord of Harmonious Change. And this is the Rider-Waite-Smith one that shows a guy kind of juggling. And harmonious change really makes sense with that. It's just like an easy shift, just like watching a juggler. It's just like they just move from one thing to the other just so elegantly. And that's really what that energy is about, that harmonious change. And so it's Jupiter ruling that first decan of Capricorn, and that is the last 10 days of December. And our gifts here, we've got this guy that's been shopping. He's holding those two gifts, and probably he looks like his arms are pretty full, probably walking home. I think there's some interesting elemental, like visual elements. The gifts seem to exchange a little bit of energy in terms of the one has red paper and a gold bow, the other has kind of green and white, like ivy leaves or holly leaves, whatever those things are called, and red bow. And you can even see with the crossing of the ribbon, you can start to see that energy of with the bows. You can start to see the energy of that lemniscate that we normally see in illustrations of this card. I think let's go ahead and move into the charts, because I think there's some interesting things that we'll see right away with that'll bring us back to this card.
I just want to make a comment that I think of the Two of Pentacles as like, dancing from one thing to another. It's like having that movement. But we'll go into the cards now. So we have Jupiter, and the date is December 21st at 1:21 a.m. for the solstice. This is a solstice chart, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so this is that that solar ingress into Capricorn. And what we see, interestingly, is that Grand Cross. And it is the T-square that we've been looking at and been talking about before, definitely last month. And I can't remember with other planets moving through, it's been going on for a while now. But right now, the primary T-square is between Mercury opposite Jupiter, and those two square to Saturn there in Pisces. And the moon is passing through, particularly tomorrow or today. I don't know what day today is. I think
Today's December 21st. Happy solstice.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, wait, what day is it? I told you guys. I've been having problems. So so today that's where the moon is, and it rounds out that T-square into the grand mutable cross. And one of the things I noticed, and I actually had the idea on the other charts to add in the aspects to the nodes, just because there were some other things that I wanted to see by doing that. But then what I noticed is that we get a square and 2 rectangles for our 3 main charts. And I was like, wait, we've got Christmas presents all over our charts today. and so this is the first one. It's that square box, even with the ribbon going across it, just like we had in our tarot card. And so the idea, especially when we're thinking of harmonious change, and of course that's where the sun is in that first decan of Capricorn, and we're thinking about how that plays into this, and the T-squares and the cardinal crosses, or the grand crosses. I always think of those energies as having a lot of pressure to them, and a certain amount of starting friction, or they can create obstacles and kind of grind. They don't want to move as easily as like a flowing trine or something like that. But this one is mutable, and so it has a lot more adaptability to it. The positions of Jupiter and those other planets are in mutable signs, so there's a lot more flow, and we can start to see that's the harmonious and the change part. And so we're kind of looking at how did these planets offer that kind of change. I mean, the Jupiter and Mercury, which I believe we talked about last month, are in each other's signs, so they have that mutual reception, and I think go on.
The mutable is asking us to finish up some things to get ready for new projects, new things in our life. So it's like, kind of pushing us to either let go or finish them up. And then I also wanted to say that Mars in this chart is still opposite Pluto. It's not exact, but it's going to be within range for several months.
There. I mean, there's a lot going on here. I think, and I guess what today is marking is that primary transition seasonally out of Sagittarius into Capricorn. And the Sagittarius energy is so active and agitated and excited and anticipatory. And if you've gone anywhere in the last month, you feel it. Like you go into any store and they're busier than usual. And we attribute it to holiday shopping and stuff. But the truth of the matter is that probably the going back time immemorial, that markets probably are busier this time of year as people are preparing for the more challenging winter season. And you can feel all of that energy. And today, and I find it agitating, and I'm not crazy about it, but today is that shift into that Capricorn energy, which is, and so appropriate for this Christmas season and the holiday season of, well, if you didn't get your presents yet, if you didn't mail them off yet, if you didn't make your plans yet, it's probably too late. You better just hunker down and like build your safety zone, and kind of settle into the more serious energy of Capricorn.
Well, and I think of a grand cross as like a chair that has four legs. Even though it's asking for change and adjustment, it still has some stability to it. And the moon, is just there for, a part of yesterday and today, and that'll be moving on. So then the energy goes to the T square. So now it's like, okay, one of the legs has been either cut off or broken, and so it's a little unstable. But to me, this T square is asking for communication with Mercury, Saturn to have boundaries or containment of some kind, and Jupiter is like really wanting to push it forward, but it's like maybe not all the information has come forth. And then the moon, you could say, is somewhat of an emotional component to that, and it is in Virgo. So maybe organize and figure out what you need to investigate or communicate.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, that's good because it makes me think, even going back to our keyword of the month of I use, I achieve, and even the keyword building for Capricorn, there is we crosses, or the number 4 so often represents foundations. And so it's like, you're building foundations on the shifting, mutable energy, the shifting sands of something, which is not you want bare rock to build a foundation. And so, and with Saturn and Pisces, we're definitely feeling this. It's like, okay, we're trying to build something. And I think that we're not done. I think this is the second, and it's not today, obviously it's coming, but it's coming up pretty soon. This is the second Jupiter-Saturn square of 3, and I forget all the dates and everything, but we're still working on this square.
It's on December 24th.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I think it's Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. Okay, so the 24th. And so we've been trying to build something. Saturn's been wanting to build something and is stuck there in the ocean, where it's not a great place to build anything. And all of these energies are so shifting. It's like, what can we build right now, especially when we're in the season of building? What can we build when we can't get firm footing? And I think that's one of the things that as we wait through that final Jupiter-Saturn square, we'll probably start to see where it all goes. But I'm sure people are having that experience. Like, after many years of being told I should get on Substack, I find this like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And so I'm trying to do this Substack, and it's supposed to be easy, right? It's like, I built many websites. Why is Substack harder to do than a website? And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. WordPress is easier than this. What are your designers? They should all be drawn and quartered or something. I don't know. They should all go into the four corners of the mutable signs and sit and think about what they've done. So there's so many difficulties and so many challenges, and I'm not even sure I want to be there in the first place. And I've got a vision for what I want, but I'm already coming up against so many limitations to creating this vision. It's like, is this what I want? Is this how I want to proceed? And we'll see. And I don't know if it'll take or not. But other people might find that they're having that same, and it might get more. The Sagittarius energy was a little more visionary. Oh, I've got the vision of what I want to do. Now we move into the Capricorn energy of actually building it. I started a little early. And so as our listeners shift from that, oh, I know what I want to do, into the Capricorn, now I've got to do it. Keep in mind that I never think that a challenge is something to avoid. I always just do things. I'm like, I don't care if the planets are bad. If I'm moved to do this now, I'm going to go ahead and do it, and recognize that there are challenges with it, and recognize that if I'm moved to do this, I'm obviously want to take on these challenges. And so I encourage people that are going through that same thing. If I want to do something new, I want some fresh something, I'm feeling this, but the astrology isn't great, I really do encourage you to engage it anyway and see what happens. Sometimes we learn a lot from building something that doesn't work. And maybe that'll be my story. We'll hear next month. But
Well, and I think there's going to be adjustments along the way, looking at the year ahead. It's like, changing, but then reworking it in a little way, or maybe changing your mind completely is a possibility. But, that it's not just going to be one quick thing and it's done.
Precisely. Yeah. And I think that's exactly how to work with this energy. And so you pulled up the new moon and Capricorn chart, which I think is a really nice a chart, and that's here coming up on December 30th. And we've got the sun and moon in the first decan of Capricorn. And one thing that I noticed, they are, well, first of all, they are sextile over there to Saturn. But the Saturn rules the sign that they're in, and Jupiter rules the decan that they're in. And so even though in some ways they feel kind of, we've had so many lunations that have been so close to other things recently that it's like, oh my God, these lunations are so intense. This one feels a little bit more relaxed. It's like, oh, it's just a sextile over to Saturn. They're mostly just, the sun and moon are mostly just doing their own thing and being able to just have a nice, calm new moon in Capricorn. But with the Jupiter Saturn square ruling those planets, we still get some of that mutable T square energy, and even the Mercury influence, which is tighter into that opposition to Jupiter than it was in the previous. It's past. It was before the opposition. Now it's past. It might be right about the same amount of orb, but yeah, a lot of this is still really related to that new moon energy and that fresh start energy. Even though there's only a small kind of connection via aspect, via rulership, we still get a real strong influence there.
And this will be a good new moon to do, affirmations, light a candle, write your desires down. And, because the first is a couple of days later, and you'll be able to see the sliver of the moon. So how I do the new moon energy is I start working on it on the new moon, but I try to have it completed when, about up to 3 or 4 days afterwards. So you'll be in that window of when you can see the sliver of the moon. Because to me, that activates it, because at the new moon, it's still the dark of the moon.
Yeah. And I think just, again, in new moons, it's good for getting started with something. And I really like the I really like this again as this idea of a new Capricorn moon, which wants us to build something. And I do think that people will be feeling that urge and being able to use this time to explore what is it that you want to build, remembering that the foundation we have is shifting quite a bit. And so we do have to still be adaptable, which is the mutable keyword, while we are initiating or generating, which are the cardinal keywords.
Well, and here in the northern hemisphere, it's winter, so there's a lot going on below the surface. So it's like to start working on something, and maybe you have to do some research, or you need to rent a building, or buy some things, or get a group of people together and have some meetings and discuss it. So it's like doing that work kind of below the surface, so to speak.
Yeah, putting down the roots. Starting with the roots, letting the roots develop before expecting to see some outward expression of what you're doing. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're going to go on to the second decan of Capricorn, and we have the Three of Pentacles, and I'll let you take it from here.
So yeah, Three of Pentacles, the Lord of Material Works is the Golden Dawn title for this card, and this is Mars ruling the second decan of Capricorn. And we've got a woman here creating a dollhouse, one of those miniature dollhouses, and she's painting it right now. There's the three presents there, and if you've ever seen these dollhouses, they're so amazing. And I had a friend from back in Denver that over the past couple of years, I followed mostly on Facebook. She started working with miniatures and creating the most adorable and so detailed, tiny little things. And it was just really amazing to see the things that she was able to create. That's this. I think this. I don't really know. I don't think I know this Christopher Hughes. I don't think I know his work very well, or if I do, it's escaping me. If he has other decks out there, maybe something I own that I'm like, oh wait, that's by him. but he seems to be really working with those Golden Dawn titles. I feel like when he's, because just that creation aspect, this using your energy to build something on the material plane. And that's what we see in the Rider-Waite-Smith card, is the artisan that is putting in the final details of a archway in a church. And there's people standing off to the side with blueprints, and I don't know, I hear interpretations a lot of times that they're the ones in charge and he's just the worker doing the work, but that is it's not actually accurate, because Mars is exalted in Capricorn and is highly productive, and all of his best attributes come out in Capricorn. And it is a cardinal sign that initiates, and definitely this person is the artist who created those blueprints, who went from idea and the initiation, the emanation of something from nothing. He went from that idea all the way through down to the very final details of decoration in this project. He's a master craftsman, and the blueprint is there more to remind us of all the steps in the process that it takes to create something, and that's very similar to what this dollhouse creation and process is.
I often think of the Three of Pentacles. It's the team of people, like you said, the architect that had the vision and to put it into form, and then the builders to build it, and the different people have their specialties. So to me, it's like a team effort. So here's the chart for Mars on January 2nd.
Yeah, and here's where we get our next Mars. Let's see. Mars is retrograde at 1 degree. Leo, and yeah, this is a Mars opposite to Pluto in that retrograde. And so Mars is backing up into Cancer there and hitting, I think, the second of three oppositions to Pluto, I believe. And like I said, as I was kind of looking at this, I just had the idea to add the aspects to the nodes, and I don't know if people normally do that. I think squares to the nodes are pretty commonly looked at. I don't know if sextiles to the nodes are, but I'm like, hey, why not? Let's do it. And so, so we get that mystic rectangle there, and that Mars Pluto energy is really challenging because Pluto is a octave of Mars. They both have a lot of intensity to them and kind of a bit of control issues, perhaps. And in fixed signs, they can really dig in their heels and not be very adaptable at all. And so this is a stark contrast to some of the other energy that we're looking at. But as we try to plan our month or even our year going forward through Capricorn, this point is the best solidity that we get, is these two planets opposite to each other pulling taut in different directions but in fixed signs. So they have that grounding, that stability, that commitment, and that endurance that our mutable signs just don't get. And so this is a pretty challenging energy on the one hand, but it's where we get our footing.
And I would say working with that energy will bring rewards and gifts to us. So, have patience and endure and keep moving forward because you can do it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And again, when I added the aspects to the nodes, we got that rectangle, which again is the box. It's a rectangular box, but it's still a present under the tree. So we've got our three gifts under the tree in this slideshow. But in the nodes are, where are they at? 1 degree of Aries and Libra, so they're really getting back there, about ready to move into our Virgo Pisces axis. But I think that those nodes, I guess the nodes and Pluto are where the evolutionary astrologers put all of their energy in and force. And so when we've got the nodes and Pluto and then Mars together to create this mystic rectangle, we talked before, when we look at rectangles, we think of them as, I was saying I thought of it as a doorway, and you had another really good metaphor. What was it that you think of with the rectangles?
Well, I think of the mystic rectangles as offering us a gift, but we do have to do the work because they're made up of 2 trines, 2 sextiles, and 2 oppositions to make this pattern. So, those oppositions, there's somewhat of a challenge and some work that you need to do. So, and, the nodes are almost at the Aries point or the world point of 0 degrees Aries. So, that being at that Aries and world point offers us opportunities, and the nodes don't make it to a world point very often. It's, every so many years. So, it's another opportunity using those nodes. And some astrologers, use the nodes a lot and some don't. So it goes back and forth. So I like to
Yeah.
use the nodes.
Yeah, I do too. I find them, yeah, and I really appreciate the fact that they are almost there, as you said, at the zero Aries point, which is where Saturn and Neptune are going to end up later this summer, and then finally conjoin there in February 2026. So this point, the activation of this point is really important. And in terms of this mystic rectangle, and in terms even of the evolutionary qualities that we can trace with the nodes and with Pluto, this doorway or this gift that you see, I think, is really opening up something very profound. And some very significant shift into what is new, what is fresh, what is growing. And the Pluto Mars thing are challenging planets, but they're the ones that are giving us the footing, and perhaps stimulating our ambition and our desire, and some things like that. So a lot of really interesting astrological energies, very very different, but working together in a really interesting way.
And I like how you said about the Aries point being activated over this year and even into next year, or 2026 and 2025. So to me, this is a really good time, and you have time to do this, is to evaluate and look at what you're doing in your life and what would you like to change, and where do you want to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and start working towards that, because
Yeah,
it's a big reset.
it is a big reset, and I really think that this a lot of this energy that we're looking at right now is it's putting the roots down. It's building the foundation, and a foundation that might need to be adjusted later. But it's really, there's a lot of um, there's such a fresh start. I guess it's just that cardinal energy that keeps coming through for me, because Mars is about to move into Cancer, and with our Capricorn placements, and the zero Aries point. Yeah, we're really getting a lot of new, fresh start type of energy going on.
Okay, then we go into the decan number 3 of Capricorn, the 4 of Pentacles. And go ahead.
And so here we've got the Lord of Earthly Power. And again, that illustration, if somebody told you to draw a picture of the Lord of Earthly Power, I mean, this is such a brilliant interpretation of that. And there's our old man, middle-aged man, sitting comfortably in his wingback chair, kind of bundled up with a sweater or scarf or shawl or something around his throat, and holding, his legs are crossed. He's holding all those gifts. He doesn't seem like he wants to give anybody anything. And typically this card is associated with being stingy, or holding on to something, not sharing. It can be kind of playing your cards close to the vest, like you want to really be in charge of it, be in control of it, not let other people know what you have or know what your plans are. And this is the Sun ruling the third decan of Capricorn. And so and I think this is the guy, and we see it's really interesting how different signs, the story that's told by the Decans in that sign, because we start out with our Lord of Harmonious Change, and the guy just like with his arms full of bags, and he's got the 2 gifts, and he's really ready to give. And then we go to the 3 of Pentacles, where, it's more about making something. And now we come into this guy that has the gifts, that they are all completed, and he doesn't want to share. there. Maybe he's received those, maybe they've been given to him, but he's not opening them either and having the thrill of discovery. He wants to hold on to them. And so it feels very different from our earlier expression with the ease of that shifting ease of the two, coming down here into what I have created my foundation. I am going to focus all of my energy on what I have started here. As a 4, again, 4s are about stability and foundations, and solidity. And so we can really see that energy of again, where can we get our footing? Where can we find our footing here and our foundation?
Yeah, at first it's like I think of him saying these are mine, but then secondly I think, well, maybe he brought gifts for people, but he still isn't quite sure he wants to give them to them.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I left it out in the car. If they're nice to me, I'll go and get it.
Okay, so we have a chart with the sun on January 15th. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we're looking at here is now we've got the sun right towards the very end of Capricorn, 26 degrees. It's opposite to Mars, which is now backed into Cancer. And of course, we're still getting that rectangle with the nodes. Mars is also trine to Neptune over there in Pisces, with a bisextile to Uranus and Taurus. So we really get quite a lot of planets involved in this particular configuration. I think it's really interesting. The sun is, depending on what kind of orb you use, you can definitely call the sun conjunct to Pluto at this point, although it's obviously out of sign and we'll have to move forward into Aquarius with our next month in order to see that actual conjunction. But the Sun Mars opposition is recalling the Mars Pluto opposition that we saw, that we just talked about, especially with the nodes, and they've moved back into 0 now at this point. So they really are just kind of right there at that 0 point already. And I think the difference that we get here is, again, we're in cardinal signs now instead of fixed. Mars has moved backwards. And so we're back out of the fixed foundational energy into the cardinal initiating, generating, getting started energy. And Mars's desire and ambition and kind of impulsiveness is, well, first of all, he's in Cancer, which is his fall. So he is weakened a little bit, but he's ruling in that sense, he's ruling the sun there. There's some reception. And so the energy that was so strong and foundational when we saw Pluto and the fixed signs has shifted again. I think shifting might be our main keyword for this month, has shifted into this cardinal generating. So again, it's like you create something, it falls down, you have to start again. Create something, the sand shift, start again. So I guess that's mainly what I'm seeing. Like I said, with this whole aspect configuration with the rectangle and that triangle at the top, it's like that's your pile of Christmas cards that you didn't mail yet. Don't worry, Christmas goes well into January if you follow a church calendar. And so, so yeah, we're trying to see, how is Neptune and Mars are part of the rectangle here, but how does Uranus lend his energy in? And now he's the one that is in a fixed sign and giving us ironically, Uranus giving us our 1 point of solidity. That's not usually great. Uranus can't be trusted and tries to upset anything that he is part of. And so yeah, we're definitely seeing he's playing the role of Krampus right now, and rewarding with a little bit of unpredictability, and not necessarily as rule oriented as Capricorn would prefer. Uranus is handing out the rewards and the punishments. And for this period, and I think that is has a bit of a randomness and unfairness to it on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's the chef show where you show up to cook something and you're given a bunch of really crappy ingredients and you have to make something out of it. It's like that's Uranus that made that decision of what ingredients you get to work with this time, and your job is to use all of your skills and abilities and get out there and initiate something and create something useful, hopefully edible if you're a chef, out of this mess.
Yes, that pattern with the mystic rectangle and the up to Uranus, it looks like an envelope. So maybe there's a surprise gift coming in an envelope later in January. Maybe somebody sent you something at Christmas time and it just hasn't arrived yet, but it could be something else too. So
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that chart was for January 15th. I don't think I noticed that until you said something. Thank you.
So we have the Capricorn court card, and I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, and again, the artwork is lovely. The art is by Aaron O'Leary Brown, I believe, and these designs are so nice. And we've got this nice looking woman in a kind of a Mrs. Claus type of dress, and she's got a gift. There's a very beautiful tree there that has a lot of animals on it and some lights, and I forget what else, but I see a giraffe and a bear and an elephant, and there's, I think, a fox, and I think there was a fish somewhere. And so just a really nice tree, and that little bunny there, which is there's usually a rabbit on the Queen of Pentacles. And so we've got the bunny toy under the tree. Just in this lovely bay window. I just think these cards are so sweet, and have such delightful scenes on them. And so she's the queen of gifts, and she's bringing, what can she make for you? What can she do for you? What can she give? And what can she share? And following the Golden Dawn system, she would be the last decan of Sagittarius and the first 2 decans of Capricorn.
Well, thank you. And that is a lovely deck. So I have a quote here, since today is the solstice. This is the solstice, the still point of the sun, its cusp and midnight, the year's threshold and unlocking, where the past lets go of and becomes the future, the place of caught breath, by Margaret Atwood. And I want to thank all of you that have joined us live and all that will come back and watch later. And I want to thank Joy for joining me today. I so appreciate that. And do you have anything that you want to say or leave with people before we finish the end?
I think that as I'm kind of processing through the variety of things that we talked about, I think one of the things that comes to mind is, remember, it's always cycles. And so Sagittarius, we talked about, we're just ending Sagittarius, and we've really been caught up in that energy for a month now. And Sagittarius has a lot of it's forward thinking, and it has a lot of generosity. And now we come into Capricorn, where we really are taking that vision and wanting to put it to work and build something. And with all of our boxes under the tree that we saw, I think what's coming to mind is that if you can build for yourself the Lord of Earthly Power, which is the Four of Pentacles. But if you are the Queen of Gifts and are ready to share, to create and build that dollhouse, to share that with others, that might be our secret weapon to find our footing in that shifting sands of that we're trying to build on. And I think if you think of what you're creating as a gift, and you imagine all of how do we find gifts? But we have to kind of shift out of what I think is cool into try to what does that person think is cool? How can I shift into them and feel where their feet are and feel what they might want and what they might need right now? And as we shift into recognizing what others want, I think that we create a stronger foundation for what we have that we can give.
Thank you. That's well said. So come back and enjoy more episodes of the Astrology Star Sisters. And monthly podcasts with Justin and myself are the monthly astrology forecast, the full moon forecast, and the Chiron asteroid series. And with the Astrology Star Sisters, we have an episode on the dwarf planets, planet stationing, decans with astrology and tarot, fixed stars, and a new one coming up in February is Uranian astrology. And Joy and I both do consultations and have newsletters and YouTube channels. We always appreciate you subscribing and joining us. And I'm going to be on at East West Bookstore. It'll be a Zoom gathering on January 1st from 12 to 2:30 Pacific time. And to sign up, it's eastwestseattle.org, and it's Thrive in 2025. In the spirit of the Japanese New Year is an auspicious day that sets the tone for the rest of the year. It'll be about goal setting, tapping into your superpower, a ceremony with the World Peace Flame, and some astrology weather reports, and working on a vision board. So if you'd like to join that, you can go to eastwestseattle.org and sign up. I will be on Top Cosmos on January 26th, talking about the Aquarius new moon. And Joy has gift certificates. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I just people always ask around this time of year about gift certificates, and I do offer them, especially now that the deadline for mailing things has passed. You can download a gift certificate and forward it right away to somebody. It makes I think of readings, I like to call it a thoughtful gift, because I think there's a lot of thought that goes into a reading for the giver of the reading, as well as providing food for thought to the recipient. And readings are also really nice experiences that people definitely remember. And I'm sure, I don't know if you offer gift certificates, but I'm sure you offer something like that as well for people that want to share with a friend.
Yes, you can email me if you want a gift certificate, and I'll tell you how to do it and email you a gift certificate right away. So again, to get a hold of Joy, it's joyvernon.com, or her email is joy@joyvernon.com, and my website is alightpath.com, or my email is liz@alightpath. And again, thank you everybody for being here. We so appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. So, goodbye for now, and we'll see you down the road.